So this is just a very basic tutorial on how to start your icons. So this is similar to how you would start any project. The first thing to do is go through the directions very, very clearly and understand exactly what's expected of you and the parameters of the assignments. So for the icons in the lecture, there is very specific directions about figure ground relationship. We've talked in class about all of these needing to be the same size. We had conversations in class about line, figure ground, composition, density, and value. And we did specific processes to start each one of those assignments. So it's similar in this space that we're starting this assignment the same way we do any other assignment. You're just doing so with less specific direction, but the process is now yours to take on. So we've modeled it and we've repeated it several times. So what I'm going to do is I have all of the photos here. And I'm going to just start in order of the directions. So the first one on the list, can someone remind me of the first one on the list? Go ahead, Billy.
Circular.
Circular. So with circular, I'm just going to start with line and shape. Okay, line and shape. Now, for now, I'm just going to do a clipping mask over the image so that I can really focus on the circular image, which I believe is this one. Is that the circular one, Vivi?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I'm going to do a clipping mask. I'm going to make a clipping mask just so that it's super clear that I'm not distracted and there's nothing else around. So as I'm looking at this one, I'm thinking about what kinds of lines do I see? What types of shapes do I see? Is there repetition? How is value organized? So I can tell right off the bat that it's not an actual circle that's made, but rather it's a series of objects that together make a circle. So I might go back in and think, okay, this is just my frame. This is just my frame. And I might start making a series of circles and think, maybe not just circles, because I like that idea that there's a light. So maybe I think about how value is organized and I start with value. And I see that there's like a light gray around the outside of the circle. And then on the inside, there is a brighter light in some areas, but I'll keep it gray. And I don't really see an outline, so I'll remove the stroke. Let's make sure this is super clearly different, because I see little circles and side circles. So then I'll take this because I also see that kind. And then I'll take this little section and I'll group it together. And I'll leave it here, but then I'll go ahead and place a few here. And then I notice it looks like some of them are further away and I can articulate that. And some of them are closer by just enlarging. And make sure I hold down Shift so it stays in a circle. And then I'll duplicate that there. So I'll start with some elements from that first one. And of course it has a more regular pattern, but I'm just doing my first preliminary sketches here. So I just selected all of this pattern and then I held down Option to duplicate it. So now I have lots of different circles. And it's not exact, but I'm thinking about it. And I just put them illuminated because I wanted to kind of reference this dark background, but I want to keep it a circle. I want my icon to stay a circle. So these are decisions I'm making because I'm looking at what's in the photo and I'm thinking about what elements I see that I can duplicate or repeat. And then maybe I make this very light gray. And I'm going to go into the 3D effect. I think it's revolve. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. And a little bit smaller. Not too small. Okay, maybe it's not going to work, and I'm okay with that. Let's just use a bright, very, very light value. Almost white circle. Now I have pieces of this first one. I need to incorporate areas of this one. I'm just going to think about all of the skills that we've learned so far. And since it's an irregular shape, I'm going to go to that thing we learned in the very, very, very first lesson of Illustrator lessons that we did, where we use the line tool or the pen tool to kind of trace, but I want a looser natural texture because the first one is very geometric. And this one I need, it's like very natural. There are curves, they're more irregular. So I'm going to actually use the brushes. So I'm just going to take some pieces of the line of this flower, the succulent rose. I'm going to take pieces of it. So I'm going to draw that. It's very loose. It's not exact. I'm going to group these together, Command G. And then I'm going to start to think about organizing, and then I'm going to just make it black, even though it's probably easier to draw on it when it's white. So I'm just going to take these pieces as line. I'm going to look at them as line and shape. And I'm going to sample them. So all the tools that we've been learning over this semester, this is where you apply them to make your piece. I think I'm going to I don't want to use all of them, but I'm going to just maybe select a couple so it's super clear that I'm sampling a little piece from each photo. And it will be different for each one of your photos, right? Depending on what you have created. So I'm selecting D for default to give me a black stroke and a white fill, and Command G to group them all together. All right, so now that I have these different pieces, I have an icon that is its own entity. It's its own image, but you can see how it references both images. The composition is still circular. I might, since I have square photos, and then I'm gonna arrange it and move it to the back. And then I see I have a texture in the back of this one. So what I might do is also make a texture that's a light with a light gray in it. And so to do that, I'll go ahead and start. I can start with the gray that is in that range because this is actually darker. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to do let's do, well, we have to release the mask first. And then I'm going to do an image trace. And I'm going to tell this image trace to do, I'm going to tell this image trace to do 3 shades of gray. It could work. I have been having some issues with let's see. Let's try it again. All right, so I'm going to do an image trace just so that I can grab that texture that's in the back without having to do a whole bunch of extra work, right? I could create it, or I can image trace it and just take pieces of it and expand it and use it for my background. Okay. All right, are there any questions so far? While we're waiting for image trace, we might as well be able to answer some questions.
Yeah, sure. I have a question about for the circular one example. If your circles are like slightly irregular, is it okay if like it goes outside of the circle shape slightly?
I think
But
that
still,
is a decision that you'll have to make when you look at your icon. So remember, the idea is to have absolute clarity, that it should be super clear that this is a circular composition. So it might mean you having to take, it might mean you having to take new photos or making different decisions. So whether it's okay, everything's okay, but it might not necessarily fulfill the need of the assignment. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay. I
Okay.
understand like experimentation.
Um,
Yeah.
I was wondering how you wanted these like organized
Oh,
on.
that's a good question. So I'm allowing you to also make that choice. I have 2 options. I have created a template for you to use, or you can take full creative ownership over how you organize these. What I do want to see is the relationship between your 2 photos and then your icon. And there's some examples of this in the icon lecture. There are a few examples of this. Uh-oh.
And then this like background sheet, or I guess, yeah, that's 8.5 by 11, right?
What do you mean background sheet?
Sorry, I don't know.
Artboard?
Yeah, the artboard.
No, so there are size requirements. So if you can you go on over to the directions and maybe like go through a little bit and see what it says about specifically size? Not 8.5 by 11. Yeah. So go to Unit 4 assignments, and there are directions and a rubric. Wow, let's try something different. All right. I always forget to actually make the clipping mask before I say make clipping mask. So I was hoping I could just image trace, but it is a very large image and that's okay. So object, I put a little box over that area. And it said no, it's like, no, there we go. So I put a little box over. Let's do this, object expand. So I'm doing object expand. There we go. So now when I move it around, it shouldn't do that. And I have this pixelated texture, looks fun. And then I'm going to group all of this together. That was a lot for just a background, but hey, you know, it is that it's sometimes what it takes. All right, so now I have an icon and it is related to my two photographs. So that's just a really quick basic outline, and this will be different for each person. And it's about making choices about what objects you're going to select and what you're going to sample and use from each photo. But information from each photo needs to be present. And that includes not just the line and the shape, but also the use of value and texture. Okay, value and texture. Once you have something that is the synthesization, so you're synthesizing the two photos, that's your icon. You save your icon and you go ahead and move on to your next icon. And you'll do this process for each one, thinking about the figure ground relationship, the composition, the value that is already present in your photo, and then making your icon based on those ideas.